Faith-based movies and TV shows have become a formidable force in the entertainment landscape in recent years, with explicitly religious productions like The Chosen and Sound of Freedom resonating deeply with Christian audiences. At the same time, more secular films with spiritual or religious themes, such as Conclave, have found traction with broader audiences. But what does the future hold for faith-based entertainment? What key trends are shaping its evolution? And how are younger Christian viewers helping to redefine the boundaries of this genre? NRG sat down with faith-based media expert David Kinnaman from Barna, a research agency that tracks the role of faith in America. Building on our own research, we unpack this shift in more detail with the goal of understanding what Christian audiences really want from faith-based entertainment.
Overall, we've seen an uptick in sort of an openness to spirituality. People are lonely, they're looking for community, and this spiritual curiosity is one of the big trends that we've been tracking. Older and younger Christians are very much alike in their desire for inspirational content. People are looking for a range of things to be entertained, relaxed, happy, excited, inspired, amused, uplifted. Christian consumers feel there is a real gap in uplifting, hopeful content. And in particular, then, when you look at younger generations, I think there's also a real desire, specifically like real life circumstances, issues related to relationships, to parenting. They want to see religious characters and not in a cynical way. They want to be able to sort of be inspired and, entertained, and they want to sort of bring their faith to their entertainment choices.
Our research found that this new generation of Christians are looking for stories about ordinary people dealing with relatable, everyday struggles. This means that Christian audiences are evolving, and they expect to see that evolution reflected in the content they consume.
I think sometimes people put Christian entertainment content into sort of one or two lanes, the entertainment that's based on scriptural or biblical stories or just the feel-good stories. But actually our research is showing that people have a pretty wide range of ideas about what Christian content actually is. Sometimes it might actually veer outside the realm of what we might typically think of as Christian content. Maybe surprising, maybe not surprising, but when we ask people when they have this sort of feeling of being inspired, it's interesting because there's a wide range of things that come up, from Friends and Heartland and This Is Us, The Office, Remember the Titans, Grey's Anatomy, even Stranger Things. This broader concept of faith-forward, inspirational, uplifting content. There's a deeply felt emotion that comes from how the filmed entertainment hits you, and a clear sense of good and evil. Usually there's a resolution where the good side wins. I think that's even an explanation on something like Stranger Things. I think we can talk about the breadth of it, and then also begin to be more disciplined about the kind of thinking and the kind of orientation towards breaking the mold of content. The successful series Nobody Wants This, which is about a rabbi dating a secular, and recognizing sort of the category mashup that happens there of religion and dating and the modern issues related to family.
Given the current state of the world and the precarity of our current cultural moment, it's no wonder that Gen Z and Millennial Christians recognize the power of spiritually uplifting content. In times when hope feels scarce, the need for optimistic content is more pronounced than ever.
I think entertainment at its best can actually provide a way of helping people to make sense of that chaos, to help them find a way to settle their own beliefs about how they want to live as a moral being in the world. And I think that as storytellers, as entertainers, as people making business decisions about the entertainment space, it's not easy because it's a very fragmented space and everyone has a deeply held personal opinion about this. But I think there's some really important themes that entertainment is a place to sort of bring people together and to imagine some of these key areas of a flourishing life, of family and mental and emotional health and purpose and meaning and virtue and character and vocational decisions, and how the hard things of life actually become meant for something larger than ourselves.
And with the world feeling a little heavier, there's a growing appetite for faith-based content that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Well, I think this is a really critical trend. We've been tracking it for about a decade, that the way that Gen Z, for example, thinks about humor and the meme culture in which they're immersed, it really is a language of this younger generation, that humor can be a force for good, a kind of chance for us to take ourselves a little less seriously and find a path towards taking a longer view of life. I think The Chosen is actually doing a good job of showing a kind of human side, a kind of Jesus cracking jokes and, laughing with his followers, and a sense of these characters traveling through space and time. So I think there's a great appetite for more humor in faith-based entertainment.
But alongside adding in moments of levity and humor, modern retellings of biblical stories need to demonstrate authentic respect for the source material. So what are the do's and don'ts when adapting religious stories to the screen?
The Bible told through 66 books and all sorts of different writers, and all of the sort of from creation to judgment and, the final apocalypse. I mean, there's a reason why the scriptures provide this sort of base layer of the hero's journey and all sort of a lot of modern storytelling. There's some critical ways. So finding a good way to tell a great story, a visual epic, a sense of amping up some of the storytelling and the set work and the jeopardy that these characters are forced to grapple with, I think is faithful. Taking someone who's suffered and finding some redemption in the suffering, that suffering wasn't just wasted. Those are the kinds of themes, and then some specific things that help to point towards a North Star in the future of faith-based entertainment. They believe that those stories, speaking of biblical stories, that God is really an active character in those stories. It's not just a figment of the storyteller's imagination, that the Bible is told from the perspective that this character, this divine, omnipotent understanding of the moral character of this divine being of God. And so the lessons should be ones in which it drives a person towards an inspired, uplifted, reflective journey towards what would it look like for me to respond.
And so there's a need to fundamentally rethink how we define and categorize this genre of content. Religious audiences are calling for content that can reach beyond their immediate community. Christians today say they prefer to watch mainstream titles that feature religious themes over content solely targeted at religious audiences. The opportunities in this space are ripe if only the entertainment and media industry can tap into this desire and take the time to listen to this powerful audience.
It's just such a critical understanding for us to realize that so many people are sort of spiritually curious. They're not as certain about everything that they say they believe. And I think that gives us a great opportunity to sort of pry open those hearts and minds with some curiosity in our entertainment. I think there's a real opportunity for entertainment to kind of shine a light in a hope-filled but truthful way that helps people. A movie like Soul Surfer gives us a chance to see a person who literally got attacked by a shark, and her faith became, Bethany Hamilton, her faith became a real source of strength, and her community around her helped her to not only survive, but to thrive. Those are good examples of, I think, telling and allowing someone's faith story to help be at the center of their journey. More than 7 in 10 identify as Christian. There are certainly many tribes and segments within that. So you can be very successful with certain segments, but then really alienate others. So to create sort of broad respect those audiences, and one way to do that is to do really good research and market research to understand the size, the sensitivities, to become clear with the kinds of fly and no-fly zones with certain audiences. And again, just recognizing that there are certain sorts of efforts that avant-garde or more kind of pushing the boundaries, they just don't work as well. I think people want to be surprised, but they don't want to be provoked. The principles would be to spend a lot of time with audiences when you're going into these beloved stories to at least understand what it is they imagine might be true and what they imagine is probably not possible. And then when you're trying to tell these stories, because Christian audiences and faith-forward audiences are clearly at the center of being commercially successful, you should at least try to help understand what a faithful telling of that story would look like.